Hi there, welcome to our next lesson in this tutorial series, Learn to use TVPaint for animation. So in this lesson we'll be covering the setup of our preferences in order to achieve a more fluidic workflow in TVPaint. So to do this we're going to start off by selecting Edit on the top of our menu bar here. And under the Edit, our pop-up menu has a selection on the bottom called Preferences. And the hotkey for this is Shift D. So we're going to go ahead and select this and a new window will pop up. And in this new window we have 6 interface tabs. The first one is General. Second one is Display. Third one is an Interface. The fourth one is Memory and Cache. And the fifth one is Sound. And the sixth one is Startup. And in this tutorial, we're going to go ahead and review the General, the Display, and the Interface tab. So our first selection under the General tab is Language. As you can see, mine is set by default to English. But if you need to change this, you can go ahead and select this menu option. And under it, we have the option to choose English, French, or Japanese. When you select either one of these, you will notice that there will be a window that pops up and it will say, to use this change, please restart TVPaint animation. And this is so that when you select this and say OK, and after you apply all your changes, you can restart it and it will display your current preferences that you have selected for the language. I'm going to go ahead and select English and just leave it at that. And then our next selection we have keyboard shortcuts, and this one is a little bit more complex. As you can see, when we selected the Edit menu and the menu popped up, and under Preferences it said Shift D. That is one of the keyboard shortcuts that is selected under this configuration. So if we want to change all of our keyboard shortcuts to whatever workflow that we have for our project, we can go ahead and select this. And as you can see, a new window pops up with a lot of options on the left side and actions on the right side. The options will allow you to either select one key or a combination of keyboard keys to create an action that is linked to that key. So as you can see in our edit preference, it was Shift D, so over here it would have been Shift D, and then on this side it would have been the preference layer. So to do this, all we have to do is select one of these options, such as like Control Insert, or let's pick Control Space. So once you hit Control Space, you can go ahead over here on the action side, on the right hand side, and you just have to select one of the actions. And one of the actions, we can go to Preview, Play. So when I hit Control Space, it will go ahead and play my preview of the clip. And to do that, we just push Assign. Now, if this is a link from a keyboard shortcut that we do not want, or the one that's already previously set, as you can see here, that these that say tablet project, clip, go to next, these are already assigned keyboard shortcuts. So if we don't want those to be assigned, and unassign them so we can assign a new action to it, we just go over here on the right hand side to unassign. As you can see, once we link it, all we have to do is push Assign to assign that link to the keyboard shortcut. Now on the right hand side here, under the 3 option buttons that we have, you'll see that we have a file. And this is files for our key map, and this is what we call a key map. And we can do a load key map, which is a key map that we already have selected or created as a template, so that it can transverse from one project to another, so we can keep our workflow. And we can also save a key map in case we change the layout of our keys. And then we have the option to also export it to a text file. This just allows us to create a text file that we can use as a reference to know exactly which keys we have connected to each action. And then we have the default key map that comes with the program, as we have other default options. And then we have clear key map, and that will, when we push this, it will unlink everything from the left side of the menu to the right side of the menu. And then you have to reassign everything. And if you need to see if there's something that's already been linked, a keyboard shortcut, all you have to do is type in which keys that you want to use, and it'll tell you exactly what it is and what it is assigned to. So we're going to go ahead, I'm going to cancel out this and go on to our next option. And our next option is the temporary directory. And this temporary directory is where our auto update is saved to. Mine is set to a folder already, but if you go ahead and select this, you can choose where in your computer you can save this temporary directory file. And mine is already set, so I'm going to leave that to the what it's already been assigned to. And our next selection, we have tablet, and this is a pretty cool option because as you can see, mine is selected to WinTab. I currently use a Cintiq, and the Cintiq, Wacom Cintiq, uses a driver that uses a WinTab under Windows. But if you're using a different type of tablet, you can go ahead and also select Subpixel. And what this does is just allow you to use your device and its driver that will be recognized by the program. So our next option is Stroke Animator, and this changes the current frame to the drawing with the control button. And our next option is Auto Backup, and what this does, again, this will save our file, whatever we're working on, every so often. I think it's every 3 to 5 minutes, into our temporary directory. Now, this acts as like a backup, or like for Mac users, you have the Time Machine, where it saves your file, but every time it saves it, it overwrites the original file, the older file. So that way it doesn't keep taking up more space on your hard drive. And that concludes our General tab for our setup. And again, you can always come back through this and change it and set it to whatever better workflow works for you for your project. Our next is Display tab. And our first option is Tool Display, and this allows us to hide tools preview or hide shape preview. And I just have this unchecked because for the purpose of our tutorial, I would like to show you everything how it works. So I just go ahead and leave these unchecked because I don't want to hide the tools or the shape preview. Our next option is Layer Thumbnails. And the layer thumbnails, as you can see down here in our layer, we have this white box. This white box displays the image, the first image on our timeline, to allow us to use it in our workflow to see what layer we're on. And so I always have this selected. The next one is an interesting one. It's called a panel bin. And under the panel bin, we have left, right, large timeline, and vertical timeline. So, and we have left is our left panel bins, or our windows on the left side here. And then we have a right, which is our right bins here, which is our tool bins and our sketch panels, as you can see. And we have a large timeline, which I have located on the bottom of my window, or my interface. And this allows me to use my workflow to to as I draw my frames out. You can change this to a vertical timeline, and you can do this just by selecting this. And as you can see, our timeline now is vertical, and our timeline runs as well in this direction. And it opens up for our window or our stage to be seen. And this can be adjusted too just by pulling this back and forth along this border. And I'm going to go ahead and uncheck that because mine is by default selected a large timeline so that I can have it on the bottom of my panel window. Our next option is timeline, and this allows us, if we're working on a project, this allows us to set a display time code on our timeline so that we can, if we needed to use as a pace setter or to time out our frames, or if we're making notes on our X sheet, we'd like to see the different times of the frames. And you can just go ahead and select that if you want. Mine, I automatically by default have it unchecked because I don't use it as a reference, but it's a preference. So our next tab, preference tab, is our interface tab. And this one is the really fun one because it's where we get to change the layout and the color of our interface in order for us to find a more relaxing and enjoyable process, because as anyone knows, as an animator, it takes a long time to draw and create animation, so we have to constantly stare at the screen for hours on end. So to make it more easier and more pleasant and less of a contrast on our eyes, we can change the color scheme so it's more easier to look at over a long duration of time. And to do this, we can go ahead and select our desktop background. Mine is currently set to this color. As you can see, my background color here is set to this color, and you can change it. There is quite a few options here, and all these options here, the colors are for the selections. Like for instance, you can see these are yellow, type of a yellow selection highlights, and as you can see, it's already set to this, and you can change, and it just allows you to refine or the inputs of each tab. And the next option we have is the color scheme, and this one is really cool because we could change the whole color look and layout of our input windows. And mine is already set by default to Lorraine Sky. As you can see, it's kind of a gray interface color. White, as you can see, changes all of our background, our interface, our bins, all of it to white. I find this a little bit too much of a contrast, and it's pretty hard to look at for over like a 12-hour period. Our next one is Casa. As you can see, it's a little bit more of a darker, neutral pastel color, which is kind of has nice for highlights. And the only reason why I don't like this interface template is because the layout or the color of the text is not very contrasting to the background. Again, this is a preference. We have the next one is Mirage. It's a more darker. This one is used for people who like to use like Adobe After Effects, and they like the interface to look like other programs in order for them to kind of like use the transfer workflow from one program to another, so that's a little more easier for them. And again, this is Lorraine Sky, the one I normally use. And we also have the option of TVPaint Animation 9. And this, all it does is allow us to select the original layout color of TVPaint Animation. Again, it's just a preference. We We also have down here open and save. Open allows us to open a template that we have downloaded from someone else, either in our own group or if you found one online that you like, you can go ahead and open that and select it and use it for your template. Or if you create your own template and you want to share it with other people or just save it for your workflow, you can go ahead and do that and just push save. So I'm going to go ahead and set this back to Lorraine Sky. And then we have the highlight. The highlight, again, is just these interface buttons that allows us to know and understand what we have already selected and what tools we're using. And we have the option of border and mirror, and this will put a border around our interface, and we can also mirror it. And then we just have to hit apply or reset. Reset just allows us to reset it to the default setting configuration of the program. Excuse me. In our next selection, we have cursor. The cursor is what we're usually, if you're using a pen tablet, is where your drawing point or your select point for whatever you're going to be selecting. I use across. You have different options here. We have arrow, point, circle, pen, 1, 2, 3, and 4. The point I generally don't recommend because it's too small and it's hard to, focus on that. I use across. It's a lot easier, and it's the default for TVPaint. Our next one, we have Windows Magnet. Magnet is just if you take a window or a bin out, you can snap it back in. And I use this so that way it's a lot easier to adjust and it's a lot faster. And then the windows also, you can apply a border on it or no border. Right now you can see there's a black outline along the border here that allows us to separate visually the bins, different various bins. It's a lot easier so that you don't have to search or understand that you're going from one bin to another. So you can choose either that or no border. I'm just going to let it be unselected. We have a file requester. This is the original file or setup that TVPaint Pro uses. Mine is currently set to TVPaint Animation 10 Pro. You can go ahead and select a different system, and this will allow you to change how the program starts up. And then we have the project window, and this is always behind the panel. The project window just allows you, when you're selecting, such as this preference window, it pops up and it remains on top of your project window here. So our next and last tab we're going to be reviewing is for our next lesson is actually memory and cache, and also sound tab, and our startup tab. So we're going to go ahead and with our next lesson, and we're going to review the last three of these preference tabs.